So today we're going to talk about some common missteps and how to avoid them. So I've been at Mylio for about almost 6 years now, and I've been running the support team for over 3 of those years. But even before that, I was working directly with a lot of customers. And throughout the years and throughout the thousands of customers that I've spoken and interacted with, there's some common threads, some common missteps or pitfalls that people um, are more likely to fall into when setting up or using Mylio. So we're going to talk about some of those today, what they are, and what you can do to avoid them or to get out of the pit if you have fallen into it. Um, like Lori said, if and for those of you that don't know me, I'm JC Figueroa. I'm the customer success lead for Mylio Photos. That means that I work directly with the documentation team, people like Angela and Lori. I work with the marketing team to make sure that the customer experience is as optimal as possible. But most importantly, I manage the support team. So when you ask someone for help, either on intercom in our chat application, or you request help directly from the app by going to the help menu and saying contact support, you're talking to someone in my team or to myself in many cases. I'm an avid underwater photographer. I've been an underwater photographer for the last 20 years. And before that, I've been in media and technology all of my life. I have my degree in communications from a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. But I've worked in all kinds of media industries, including broadcast news and every possible video and photo software that you can imagine. So I've made it a lifelong mission to not only learn, but also to help educate others. And that's what we're doing here today. As Lori mentioned, we don't have a Q&A because this is a meeting, not a webinar. So instead, raise your hand. And there's a raise hand button on the toolbar in Zoom, the Zoom toolbar. You can also type your question in the chat. Lori will be monitoring that, and she'll either reply to you directly or she'll let me know. And when we get to the Q&A session, we'll address any of your questions that we can answer. For those that we can't answer, I'll just make something up. So let's get started. Common missteps. Starting right away. One of the issues that particularly people just getting started with Mylio is they run into account issues, and there's a couple of them. Over the past 2 years, we worked really hard to try to simplify the account process with Mylio. But one thing that a lot of people don't is not obvious to a lot of people right away is that there's two parts to Mylio. Mylio is both the software, the application that you install on your computer or on your mobile device, but there's also a service aspect to it. And that service aspect doesn't really work. Actually, the application doesn't work either without an account. So everybody needs an account in order for Mylio to function correctly. And that account is connected to our backend, to our service. And it's a big part of his job is not only to authenticate your device to say, oh yeah, this is JC's phone. It's okay to put his photos here, or it's okay to get photos from that phone. But it's what allows the devices to communicate with each other, and it keeps the software acting accurately, doing things like letting you know that there's a software update and that you need to update your application so that it remains as good as it can be. So when it comes to account, sometimes there's mistakes that people fall into. A very common one is having multiple accounts. So if you're new to Mylio and you're using the application and maybe you add a new device, and that new device, your phone, is not showing up in your Mylio account, you're not seeing it in the device list in Mylio. And I'll switch to Mylio here. It might be that you're here on your devices and you added a new computer and a computer is just not showing up. You're not seeing it in the list. It is very possible that you inadvertently created a second account. It happens more often than we like. So what I always recommend you do as a simple troubleshooting step is to check that all your devices are on the same account. And that's what this graphic here is. This is our little account page that can be accessed directly from the application. You go up here to the top right corner, there's a little silhouette of a person. When you click on that, you get the account information, and that shows you what the account email, the email associated with the account is, what the plan that that account believes to be under, whether it's Mylio Photos, our free plan, or Mylio Photos Plus, the subscription plan that has all the extra features. And most important than anything, your account ID. If you see two different IDs between your devices, that means that your devices are on different accounts, and Mylio is not going to let them talk to each other, because that's the whole point, right? You don't want your photos to be going to some random Mylio user. You want them to go to your devices. So very simple thing to check. And of course, if you find that you are in that predicament and that one of your devices is in the incorrect account, you can just factory reset that device, and there's instructions on how to reset in our manual. Laura, if you don't mind putting the reset instructions on the chat so everybody can learn how to basically stop using the wrong account and log into the correct one. Continuing with account issues or missteps, sometimes the device is not activated. And what I mean by that is that, again, in that same account page, you might see the device showing Mylio Photos instead of Mylio Photos Plus, even though you know for certain that you are paying for a subscription. These two, device not activated or the account plan not activated, they're kind of one and the same. Sometimes it happens to only one device. You might have 5 devices and 4 of them are fine, but one of them is not. Or sometimes none of your devices are showing Mylio Photos Plus, even though you know you just went and upgraded your account and you pay for it. And again, the troubleshooting for this type of account issue is pretty easy. The easiest works 90% of the time way to solve this issue is to simply restart the device. Not just restart the Mylio application, but actually restart your computer or phone altogether. And that is because in many cases, the problem is that the software can make a network connection with our service, and restarting the device sometimes resets the network settings on that device enough that that connection can be made. The Mylio application by default is going to check in with our service every 30 minutes. If you're on a plane and you don't have an internet connection, it's going to fail. Mylio is not going to stop working. It's going to let you continue to work. But the next time it goes to try, it might not realize that you're no longer offline. So sometimes restarting the device helps fix that issue. If you have restarted your device and your account is still not showing correctly, still showing Mylio Photos versus Mylio Photos Plus, you can open the console. And for those of you not familiar, the console is a command line interface that we use in support to help you debug the application, to help you kind of get out of trouble by typing certain commands. You can access it from the help menu by going to console. And in there, you can enter command. The command that I'm recommending for this issue is called reauth, or reauthorize. If you type that in there and hit enter, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to reauthorize this device right now. We're using it. Mylio is going to prompt you to quit the application. And when you relaunch it, it's going to give you a window where you log into your account again. And that will, in 99.9% of the cases, solve your issue. So those are kind of the most typical account issues that we see in support. So if you run into this or know someone that has run into this, these are the common ways to solve it. And of course, you can always contact support, but these are the things we're going to have you check first before anything else. So if you're having this problem, run through those things and then tell us, I already did the things JC said and it's still not working. and we'll help you out. But chances are it will solve your problem. All right. Next, and this is by far the most common problem that we see, which is storage. Some sort of storage issue related to your devices or to how the storage is allocated. So it's not always that you don't have enough storage. Sometimes it's just a configuration issue. Excuse me 1 second. I'm getting over a cold, and every once in a while I have to cough. All right, that's a little better. So let's go one step at a time. The most common storage problem that people, thank you, Robin, that's very sweet of you. The most common problem that people run into with storage is that they don't designate a device to be their vault. For those of you not familiar with that concept, with that terminology of a vault is a designation in Mylio that you can assign to any device. Any device can be assigned as a vault, right? I can go here and I already have some devices designated as a vault. In my case, I have 3 different hard drives. You'll notice the little icon on them, and they're under the drives and clouds section of my devices panel. For those of you not familiar, the way you get, so here I am in my all photos view. I can click on the dashboard and click on devices, and that's how I get to that section. So I have 4 devices designated as vault, 3 hard drives and 1 cloud device. But many people only have their computers and their phones. They don't have any devices designated as a vault. And a vault is simply a device that tells Mylio, this is the place for you, Mylio, for the Mylio software, to store all the original images, right? Every image that you bring in Mylio, you're bringing the original photo, right? The photo that you took with your camera or with your phone. You're importing that into Mylio. Mylio is going to create some proxy versions of that photo, a thumbnail and an optimized version. The optimized version is greatly reduced in size, but visually is almost indistinguishable from the original. And then you have the original file. So there's 3 versions different in visual quality and, more importantly, in storage size. If you have a large library, say 100,000 images that take 2 terabytes, you're not going to be able to fit all 2 terabytes of images or 100,000 images on your phone directly in the storage of your phone, because your phone might only have, say, 256 gigabytes of storage, so not enough room. So what Mylio does by default with most devices is they get a designation of space saver. And space saver is going to put that optimized version of your photo, the one that looks like the original but is way smaller, into every device. But if you don't have a device designated as a vault, Mylio is going to continue holding on to the originals, and your originals are going to be spread all over the place. So if I didn't have any vaults right now, every photo I take with my phone is going to stay in the storage media and the storage device on the internal hard drive of my phone. Same with my laptop or my desktop computer. Any photos that I import from my camera are going to stay in the internal drive. And eventually you're going to run out of space. And that is one of the most common issues that people see with Mylio, where their device is out of space and they don't know what to do. So the best thing to do is to have a device that's designated to be a vault. Now, what makes for a good vault? Well, let's start by what doesn't make for a good vault. A phone or any kind of mobile device, including a laptop, is often not a good option to be a vault. 2 reasons. Number 1, they tend to have less storage than other devices. Phones, you can buy a phone with 1 terabyte of storage. They're expensive. But most phones are, 128, 256 gigabytes of storage. And for even a moderate library like mine, I have 50,000 photos in my library. that is just simply not going to fit. So setting up a mobile device as a vault is not a good idea because of storage constraints. The other reason to not use a phone, a tablet, or a laptop as a mobile device is because, or sorry, as a vault, is because those devices are more prone to loss or damage. You're more likely to lose your phone than you are to lose the desktop computer that always sits at home. So best devices for vault designation are external hard drives, cloud storage, or any computer that is fixed, that tends to stay in the same place and has plenty of storage. Many desktop computers come with multiple terabyte hard drives internally. Some of them have multiple hard drives in them, so you can take one of the hard drives and designate it as your Mylio vault. But the idea is that you have at least one device where Mylio knows to put all the originals. That way it frees up the space on the other devices. And now you always have a phone that you can keep taking photos with, or your laptop hard drive doesn't get filled up, or your tablet hard drive doesn't get filled up. So having a vault assigned is one of, or not having a vault is one of the most common storage problems. So get a device designated as a vault. I recommend having a minimum of 2 vaults. I personally have 4, and I actually back up one of my vaults outside of Mylio as an even more protected methodology. So I don't want to lose any of my photos, and Mylio really helps me with that, because every photo I put in Mylio goes to 4 places. It goes to all 3 of my hard drives, and it goes to Backblaze, which is my cloud-based storage that is designated to be a vault. Another common storage issue is having a suboptimal device sync policy assigned to a particular device. Just like I was saying, that is not a good idea to have a phone or another mobile type device designated as a vault. That's a common problem people run into. So here I have an iPad mini. I believe that this device only have about 128 gigabytes of storage. Really trying to make that device anything but have thumbnails would be a bad idea. So this device is set up as a space saver. It might be a better idea to set it up as catalog only, right? And what that means, when you change this preset, this device sync policy preset, what you're telling Mylio is, this is the quality version of my photos that I want you to store locally in this device. And it's going to explain what it is. So when I click catalog only, it said, I'm only going to keep thumbnails of each photos. It takes a minimum amount of space. Now, that doesn't mean that on my Mac Mini, I can only see low quality versions of the photos. Anytime I'm using Mylio and I tap on a photo and I open it full size, Mylio is automatically going to go and look for the better version from one of your other devices, and it's going to provide you a better experience. So even though the photo is not permanently there all the time, you can always see that photo in better quality as long as one of your other devices is online. And if you're like me and you have at least one cloud device, or you have Mylio Drive enabled in your account, you'll always have access to at least the optimized version of the photo, which in 90% of the cases is all you need. So be sure that the designation for your device sync policy on a device by device basis is appropriate. Also, watch out for items that override that device policy. You'll notice here that on my iPad Air, even though it's designated to be catalog only, to only store thumbnails, at the bottom of this panel, Mylio is saying the following folders currently override your device sync policy, and it's telling me what the name of the folders are. That means that there's certain folders within Mylio that don't follow the global policy. They have their own policy, and I did that intentionally so I don't have to clear that out, but it's something to look for, because in my case, my iPad has catalog only, but for this video cores for my camera, I keep that as originals because it's something that I want to have access to on the plane. I'm traveling, so on the plane I'm watching those videos, so I want them to have them in my iPad. So common issue is, is your device sync policy set correctly? Uh, if your device runs out of space, and let's imagine that my iPad was out of space, it was set up to be a vault, and I changed it to catalog only. One thing that I'll need to do is on that device, on the device that's having the issue, I'll change the device sync policy to something else, and then I'll clear the cache. Clearing the cache is going to basically free up the storage that Mylio is using on that device, as long as what's in that cache is something that has been saved to one of your other devices. Mylio is not going to delete anything that will cause a permanent deletion. So, but it's a step that you do need to take to free up that space. Changing the device sync policy alone is not going to free up the space. You also have to clear the cache. And clearing the cache has to happen physically on the device that has the issue. You cannot do it remotely. So you might have noticed that I switched to my MacBook Air because that's the physical device I have with me. Excuse me. Okay, and then the last problem or pitfall that sometimes we run into with regards to storage is how the storage is allocated on a device. So on every device, and again, this is a setting just like the clear cache setting, it's a setting that you have to do on the device itself. There is this information about device storage. So you go to dashboard, devices, the device that you're on, that you are on, this device, and then you scroll all the way to the bottom and you can see device storage. And if you click there, you can see how much space is allowed to be used by Mylio in that device. So in the case of my MacBook Air, I have the auto manage setting turned on. And what Mylio did is it kind of went and looked at the size of my hard drive and it said, okay, I'm gonna use everything except the last 241 gigabytes. What that means is that the minimum free space, the amount of space that Mylio is not going to touch is 241 gigabytes. So if I'm doing a big import and Mylio gives me a big red banner that says your MacBook Air is out of storage and one of my vaults is not nearby, what I can do is I can go here to this setting, I can turn off auto manage, and I can change this threshold and say, Mylio, let me use more space. Let's just leave 100 gigabytes as the minimum free space. So that allows Mylio to use more space in your hard drive. So it's an allocation, and it's a reverse allocation. What you're designating is what Mylio is not going to use. So all this space over here to the right is what Mylio can use. All this space is what Mylio cannot use. So if I move it this way, I'm telling Mylio, you can use less of the hard drive. If I move it to the left, I'm telling Mylio, you can use more of the hard drive. So I'm going to leave that as auto managed for now. If you do change it, make sure that you apply those changes. Otherwise, it won't stick. All right. So those are common storage problems. Look out for those. Mylio will give you a big red banner, and I'll put a red outline on any device that is low on storage. So look for that and then see what's up with that device. And if you haven't already designated a device as a vault, I strongly recommend that you do so. I always recommend that everyone should have at least one external hard drive that they designate as a vault before you get fancy and do things like cloud or a NAS or anything else. External hard drives are incredibly inexpensive anymore, and you can get them in very, very large capacities. So unless your library is in the millions of media, you can buy a large enough hard drive to keep your entire library. So do that designated as a vault, let Mylio synchronize. Everything will work immensely better. All right, let's move on to the next common misstep, and that is link folders. And I like to say that when you're in Mylio, you are what you link, because every folder in Mylio, I'm sorry, Lori, I see your hand raised. Was there a question?
Oh, no, while you were talking about vaults, I was wondering if you could talk about the free version versus the paid version of Mylio
Oh,
Photos.
good. Very, very good point. Yeah. So the Mylio Photos Plus, which is the subscription-based plan versus the free plan, Mylio Photos, just like streaming apps, right? You have Peacock, and then you have Peacock Plus. One gives you limited shows, the other one lets you see everything. So Mylio Photos is our free application. Mylio Photos only works on that device. So really the only option for setting up a vault in that device is the device that you're on, which most likely is going to be a computer or a phone. It might be fine for your use, and if that works for you, no issues. But if you have multiple devices, or you want to set up one or more vaults to work alongside with your device, that does require the Mylio Photos Plus subscription-based plan, because that's what's going to allow the synchronization between devices. Very good point. Thanks for mentioning that, Lori. Okay, so you are what you link. So every folder in Mylio, believe it or not, every single folder is a link folder. And what I mean by that is that if I go here in Mylio and I go to my folder view, my folder view right here, this is the top level of my folder view. Every device that I use with Mylio, in the file system of that device, there's going to be an instance of every one of these folders. So I show you before that I have multiple hard drives designated as vaults. One of them is called Grouper, and you'll notice that it's highlighted in white here. That means that it's online. This is a drive that I physically have with me right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to split my screen here, and I'm going to open the file system. I'm on Mac OS, so that is gonna be the Mac OS Finder. And I'm going to go to that hard drive, Grouper, and in that hard drive, I see a Mylio folder called Mylio _ and a number of letters or characters that represent my account. If I open that, what I see in there is a direct representation of the same folders that I see in Mylio. I see my Android photos, my Apple photos, my Mylio inbox, my Mylio pictures. I see a folder called social media, which represents Facebook. So if I expand that folder, you see the Facebook folder is within it. I see a test folder, and I see a trips folder, which is the one that has the majority of my photos. Because this device, Grouper, is designated to be a vault, all of these folders are populated. So all of my images are there, and there's going to be more about this in a bit, but I'm just giving you kind of a preview. So every folder in Mylio is really a link folder. Just like my device Grouper has all the folders in my account, my internal computer, my MacBook Air, if I go to the internal hard drive for that computer and I go to my home directory, there's a Mylio folder there, and inside that Mylio folder, once again, there's my Android photos, my Apple photos, my inbox, my Mylio pictures, social media, tests, and trips. And there's some other stuff there that I've done over time. Don't worry about those. They're either things that I linked in the past or tests that I've been doing. But the point is, every device has the same folders linked to them. So what folders you link to Mylio can greatly benefit, or in many cases, affect how things work. So one thing that I recommend to every new user of Mylio, and Lori already added the part of the manual that tells you how to link a folder, but in the manual, there's an appendix that explains how link folders work. It's called Understanding Link Folders. That is a great read. and I strongly recommend you read it. It has a lot of different examples, and it's going to greatly help you understand how linked folders work. But I'm going to give you a few warnings regarding linked folders. Don't link what I call undesirable folders. And I have two examples. The documents folder in your computer. It might be that you have some photos there, but you're also likely going to have a lot of other things that you don't want in Mylio. Maybe you have some spreadsheets there. Maybe you have some text files. Mylio doesn't just read photos. It reads photos, it reads videos, it can read text files, it can read PDF files, it can even read Office documents if you turn on the setting to do so. So Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Excuse me. So if you link a folder that has a bunch of stuff that you don't want in Mylio, Mylio doesn't know. So if Mylio can read it, it's going to add it to your library. And what you might end up with is a bunch of stuff that you really didn't want there. Same with the downloads folder. Sometimes the download folders has all this tiny little images, you know, like this little meme that you downloaded that you really don't want in your library. But if you link that folder, you end up with all this extraneous things. So be careful what folders you link. Make sure it's something that you really want to be part of your library. Another common issue that we see in support all the time is people linking a folder that is managed by a cloud service. And what I mean by that is things like OneDrive or Dropbox, you have the ability to see those folders in your file system as if they were in your computer. But in reality, the service, in this example, OneDrive or Dropbox, are controlling the contents of that folder. What most cloud services do is they tend to manage your local storage. They say, oh, JC's hard drive in his laptop is getting full. So these things that he has in this OneDrive folder, I'm just going to put them in the cloud and I'm going to make it look like they're in the hard drive, but they're not really there, right? And then what happens is that you're having two different systems, Mylio and the cloud service, let's say OneDrive in this case, in contention for managing a piece of media. Mylio goes to look for a file, and that file looks like it's in your hard drive, and Mylio tries to import it, but it can't because the file is not really there. It's on the cloud, or vice versa. You delete a photo in Mylio, and because you have the folder that photo is contained in, you really wanted to delete it, but it was in the Dropbox folder, and the Dropbox goes, oh, that photo disappeared from the folder. Let me restore it, and it brings it back. And you keep deleting in Mylio, and the photo keeps reappearing. Well, it's because you link a folder that a third-party service is trying to protect. So you don't want two different synchronization services, Mylio and something else, in contention for the same folder. So be careful of not linking those folders. And if you have linked a folder that you really didn't want to, the easiest thing to do is to remove that folder from Mylio. And you can do that right from the folder view. You can click on any folder and you can say remove folder from catalog. And what that's going to do is it's going to break the link, but it's not going to delete the folder. The folder will remain outside of Mylio in the computer, in the file system, but it won't be linked. Mylio will not consider it part of your library anymore. All right. And then the last thing I'll talk about is when you link versus when you copy media, right? So let's say that you have a lot of photos in many places in your laptop, and that one of the reasons you purchased laptop and a hard drive was to free up space in your internal hard drive. Well, if you link the folders in the laptop, all that media will start appearing in Mylio, and Mylio will replicate it to your external hard drive that you designated as a vault. But it's still going to leave it where it is, because when you link something in Mylio, you're telling Mylio, make this part of the library, but don't touch it. Leave it where it is. So Mylio does exactly that. In those cases where what you're trying to do is consolidate everything into one place and free up space on your device, I recommend doing a copy import. And what that means is that when you're in the Mylio application and you invoke the import command, I did it from, let me show you that again. I'm invoking the import command up here from the add media button. I'm going to tell Mylio, I want to add media accessible from this device. And I'm going to go here to my desktop. And here's a folder of photos that I want to be part of my Mylio library. But my goal is to not have that sitting on my desktop anymore. So when I open that, Mylio gives me the option of linking, copying, or moving. In this case, I want to copy it. And the cool thing is that Mylio tells me, okay, where do you want me to put it? And then any of the folders that you already have, you can move that there. So let's say I want to move that to my test folder. I can go here and I can find that test folder. That becomes my destination. And then once I copy that media, I can delete it from the desktop because Mylio is going to go and replicate it to all of my vaults. And when all of that is synchronized, I can delete it from the desktop on my laptop. I still have access to the photos through the Mylio application because it's showing me a proxy all the time, even if the original is not local. And I know that the originals have been protected to all my vaults, but I'm freeing up space on my device. So link versus copy. I can't really tell you which one is the best one for you because it's a subjective decision, which is why the first thing I recommended was that you go and you read the understanding link folders to make sure that that is applicable to your use case or not. All right. And okay, I saw that there was a question about how to delete an empty folder, and I do want to save that because there's something I'm going to show you that is going to answer your question. All right, so it's time for me to take a break again and drink some tea because I feel it. Thank you very much. My apologies about you having to listen to me talk with a stuffy nose. All right, next we're going to talk about something called lost originals. And this is something that, again, we often see in support, and people are not aware that is happening. Is often not very obvious in Mylio because you can still see the photo in your library, but the original is lost. And one of the most common symptoms that people come to us with is like, my vault is not syncing. You know, I have 25,000 photos and my vault has synced 24,500, but the last 500 will not sync. And then we look at their logs, and the first thing we see is that they have 500 lost originals. And if the original is lost, the vault can sync because there's no original file to sync. So first question, what is a lost original? All right, so a lost original is a piece of media where the original file, the full size, full resolution photo that came from the camera or the scanner or your phone is lost. Mylio no longer knows where that photo is. The most common way in which this occurred, there's two common ways in which this occurred. The media is deleted outside of Mylio before Mylio is done moving the file to your vaults, or you remove a device from Mylio, you unregister a device from Mylio, and that device is the only one that had certain copies of your original photos. When you do that, you are creating inadvertently this lost original issue. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to go here to Mylio on my computer, and I'm actually going to quit the application. I'm going to exit it completely. And I'm doing that so that my phone can't synchronize with it, right? And now I'm going to share my phone screen. It takes a minute to come up, so bear with me. There it is. So here's my phone. I'm going to open up the camera. I'm going to take a selfie. Hello. And now I'm going to open the Mylio application. And what Mylio is going to do is going to, let me sort here by date. Mylio is going to import that photo. There it is. So Mylio now knows that there's a new photo in my phone, a selfie that I just took. But the original version of that photo is only in my phone so far. So now I'm going to quit Mylio. And I'm going to go to Apple Photos. And I'm going to delete that photo that I just took. And now I've created a lost originals. So now I'll open up the Mylio Photos in my phone. I'll open up Mylio in my computer as well. And if I go here to my most recent photos, that photo and new photos from my phone are going to show up here. There it is. But if I look at my sync panel, you'll notice that the MacBook Air has brought over the thumbnail and the optimized version of that photo, and Mylio synchronized it, but no device has the original. Nowhere in here is any of this device shows a green option for that photo. That's because I deleted it from the only place that the photo existed before Mylio synced it up, which was my phone. If I go here to my devices and I click on MacBook Air, notice that it's showing me I have 2 lost originals, and it's going to tell me what those 2 lost originals are. One is that selfie I took, and looks like there was a screenshot that I took that Mylio created a thumbnail for, but never downloaded the original. So I didn't even know I had that lost original. So this is really kind of annoying because now my devices will never be fully synchronized because what's missing, notice that. So here's Backblaze. Notice that there's 2 lost originals for that and for Grouper. And I can never finish the synchronization because the original is gone. So that's what a lost original is. And it's no big deal when it's a photo you didn't want, because in that case, I can just delete it, right? I can select it and say delete. And now I have 1 less lost original. If I go over here and I look at, I refresh the view of lost originals. Now I only have 1 lost original. So deleting unwanted photo that happens to be a lost original, that's the easiest solution. But another solution is to just restore it. So in the case of my phone, because when you delete something in Apple Photos, you can restore it. I can go back to my phone and just try to restore that from the trash can. And I'm just taking a look here to see what. So there's my trash can, and there's the lost original. So I can just tap that photo and say recover. I don't think you can see that on the phone, but there's a button that says recover on the bottom. So once I recover that photo, and I switch back to Mylio, Mylio is going to find that original again, and it'll be able to synchronize it just like before. It sometimes takes a little bit of time before it notices it. All right. The other way in which you sometimes have is if you remove a device. Let's say that I have this Pixel phone here, and I've taken a bunch of photos with that phone, and I decide, you know what? I don't really want to use Mylio on this device. I'm going to go ahead and unregister that device. And if I click unregister device, and there were photos, originals on that device that Mylio hadn't yet synchronized, now I'm going to have a whole bunch of lost originals. Mylio will give you a warning if you click on register. It will give you a warning in this window and say, they are originals that are only in this device. Are you sure you want to remove it? Sometimes people don't notice that and remove the device anyway, and that generates original. So something to look for and to try to avoid. All right. So what can you do? Well, I show you, you can put it back. If you deleted the photo outside of Mylio, you can go to the trash can either on your phone, on your Photos application, or in the case of a computer, you can go to the recycle bin or to the trash can, find the photo and put it back where it was. Mylio will pick it up again. You can delete it if it's something that you don't want. If you have the original file, you can delete the version in Mylio that has a lost original and re-import it, and now it'll be a new photo again. Of course, if you've done any changes to that photo, like face tagging or anything like that, you will have to do that work once more. And then in the cases where you have a lost original, where you really don't know where the original really is gone, but it's a photo that you want to keep, you can actually use the optimized version of the photo, because Mylio created this photo that looks pretty good. It's just not the original. It's more compressed. You can just export that version in Mylio, export it, delete it, and then re-import it so that what you exported becomes the new version. It's not going to be exactly as high quality as the true original was, but at least you have the photo and it's not lost. So that's what you can do with lost originals. And there's a section in our manual that explains a lot of what I just said. And Lori has put a link to that in the chat. Thank you, Lori. She's always so on top of it. All right. And here is our last section. And this is, I call it file system tinkering. And it's something that a lot of people do, right? And Mylio is one of the very few, if not the only system out there, definitely the only system that works with any operating system that allows you to work both in the file system and in the application itself. Most photo organization applications, like take Apple Photos, for example, are what is called a managed library. And what that means is that you can only access the photos within the application itself. So if you're in the Apple ecosystem and you're using Apple Photos, it has a lot of great features and it works really well, but your photos are only available in the Apple Photos app. You cannot see them in outside that application. And that's okay. It's a great way of doing it. The way Mylio does it is different. We just put everything in the file system. And early on, I show you how the folders in your folder view are just a mirror image of what's in your hard drive, right? So I'll go here to grouper again, and I'll open my Mylio folder. And the folder here are the same folders I see in Mylio. Well, you probably started using Mylio because, sorry. I'm sorry about that. You probably started using Mylio because trying to manage all your photos with just the Finder or Windows Explorer was too cumbersome, right? So my advice to you is then use Mylio. Just make your file changes in Mylio. You can move and make changes in the file system. I can take a bunch of photos and just put them in my trips folder outside of Mylio, and Mylio is going to notice that change and is going to bring it in. But sometimes people do so many changes and they do it in multiple devices all at once that it becomes really, really difficult for Mylio to keep up. I'll give you an analogy. Let's say that you're moving, right? And you have everything packed up in boxes, and you have different boxes that go to different rooms in your new home. Well, when the movers bring the boxes, they might not put them all in the same room, right? They put all in the living room, and they're all stacked on top of each other. And now you don't know what box is where, and you're looking for a particular item that's, is packed up and is in one box, and that box is labeled office, but you can't get to it. Well, sometimes Mylio gets put in that predicament. So many changes are made outside of Mylio in the file system that Mylio no longer knows where the folder with that particular file has been moved to, and it takes it a while to find it. And in most cases, if you give it enough time, it'll sort it out and you'll see all the changes. But what happens is that people make some changes, they don't see them immediately, and then they start making more changes, which just exacerbates the problem. So one of my pieces of advice to you is that don't use the file system to make moves. Make those moves directly in Mylio. Anything that you can do in the file system, you can do in Mylio, because the folder view, not only can I open a folder and see all the subfolders within it, I can also open a folder tree view here, and I can do organizational work that way, right? I can open my trips folder and I can see all my trips. And if I say, okay, the photos in this random folder really were part of a trip that we took, and they should be here in this Alaska folder, I can just move them there that way. And you're doing all of that in Mylio. So Mylio already knows where things had to go. It already knows and is keeping track of things. And it's going to mimic that on your file system from its source of truth rather than the other way around. So make your files changes in Mylio itself whenever possible. Sometimes it's not possible, and that's fine. But if you're going to make a lot of changes, stick with, one device at a time. Don't make a lot of folder changes in 3 different computers while Mylio is synchronizing and you have 3 other vaults connected, because this Mylio is going to fall behind. Keep in mind that Mylio is not just physically moving files around, it's also writing all this in the catalog of every device, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And depending on what else is going on with your computer, it might get behind. So that's my first piece of advice when it comes to managing files in Mylio. The other thing, and what this cute little keep out sign is about, is there's a few places where you simply don't want to go, right? One of them is called generated images.bundle. If I go back to that hard drive of mine, you'll notice that in addition to my folders with my Mylio photos in this vault, I have something here called generated images.bundle. There's an article in the appendix section of our manual called Mylio and your file system. And it explains the relationship between Mylio and your file system. And one of the things that it mentions is the generated images bundle. Lori already put a blurb about generated images bundle in the chat, but there's also this other section that I'm sure she's going to link. The generated images bundle is the place where Mylio puts those proxies we talked about. Remember, we talked that Mylio creates a thumbnail and it creates an optimized version of those photos. Well, those photos have to go somewhere. It's not going to put them in your folders because that's where the original goes. It puts them in the generated images bundle. And if you go in there and you start mucking around, you're going to mess things up. So don't touch it. In macOS, it looks like a file, and you can't really go into it unless you right click and say show package content, and then it shows you all this folder. And sometimes people go in here and say, oh my God, Mylio changed the names of all my photos. No, we didn't. This is just a hash reference driven by the database. The database knows what that file is. It's just your proxy photo. You don't need to be in here. Let Mylio manage it. The true file is still going to be in the folder with the original name, just like you left it. So generated images bundle, at the end of the day, the rule is just don't touch it. Just don't go into it. In Windows, it looks like a folder. It's really easy to go into it. just leave it alone. Another thing that you might notice is something called a sidecar file. So notice I said no moving files in the file system. A sidecar file is the place where Mylio puts all the metadata changes that you make to an image. So Mylio by default, or by design, I should say, is a non-destructive system. That means that we never change the original photo, the original file. We make versions of it. We make the thumbnails and the optimized images, and we track any changes that you make to that image in Mylio, whether it's a visual change, like, editing a photo to turn it black and white, or adding metadata like face tags or changing the geolocation. We track all those changes in something called an XMP sidecar file. That way, the original file always remains pristine and you can always go back to it. But we also give you all the changes that you made outside of Mylio. So if you decide that you don't want to use Mylio anymore, all the work that you did is portable. It's on a industry standard XMP file that other applications can read. So if you were to go into one of your vaults and you open any folder, you will notice that some of your images are going to have the original image. Right here's a photo of, I think it's one of our cats. Let's see. It's a really big file. So yeah, it was a friend's cat that was staying with us. And next to it is an XMP file. The XMP files are very, very small, and they contain metadata about your photos. So if you tag a photo, if you added keywords, if you did anything else to that file, we leave the original alone and we put the XMP right next to it. So if you're in the file system and you notice that this XMP file starts showing up, that's normal. You want that. So leave them alone. Empty folders. What I mean by that is that sometimes you might go into a device. Let's say I go here on my MacBook Air and I go into my internal hard drive and I go to my home directory and my Mylio folder. And I'm going to go here to my, my social media folder, right? In Mylio, if I go into my social media folder, I have a bunch of photos. But if I go to the Mac, all of a sudden, those photos are not there. I go here and I open Facebook and it's just XMP files. The folder is empty. Oh no, Mylio deleted my photos. No, Mylio did not delete your photos. Your photos are still accessible. It's just that this computer, my MacBook Air, is not designated to be a vault. It's designated to be space saver. So Mylio is doing exactly that. It's saving space in your computer by not putting the originals, but it still allows you to see the photos because it has the proxy image, the thumbnail, or the optimized version of that photo. So if you see folders in your file system that appear to be empty or only have XMP sidecar files, don't worry about it. It's normal. Look at the sync policy for that device and check to see if that device is designated as anything other than a vault, and then it'll make sense. If the device is designated as a vault and a folder is empty, the likely reason is one of two things. Mylio hasn't finished synchronizing, so it's still trying to bring the photos over, or you have lost originals. So the original can't be put in the folder because Mylio doesn't know where it is. All right, and then the last thing I'll mention about this, because we're out of time, but I still want to answer a few questions, is hidden files called .mylog. So these files are hidden for a reason. Both Macintosh and Windows, macOS and Windows, have something called hidden files. Any file or folder that starts with a period is going to be invisible or hidden by default. You can go into the operating system, and on Mac you hit a series of commands, and it'll show you those invisible files. There's one of them right there. Those are normal. If you go into your file system and you see a file called .mylog, don't mess with it. All that file is very simple. It's a marker that tells Mylio, this folder is already part of the Mylio library. Do not add it again. That way, if you haven't kept track of what folders you linked and you try to add the same folder more than once, Mylio is not going to let you because it's going to see that there's a lock file there. But it doesn't lock your files or affect your ability to use your computer or your folders in any way. It's just a little sign for Mylio saying, yeah, I already added this folder. All right. And previously somebody had said, where do I delete my empty folders? Well, go back to number one. Don't move files or folders in the file system. Do it in Mylio. So if you have a folder that's empty and you no longer want to use it to have it, right? Let's say that I have this folder called miscellaneous, and I grab all the photos in it and I move them to another folder. So I'm going to move them to say my flowers folder. Well, now that folder is empty. The best thing I can do if I want to delete that folder is to delete it right here in Mylio. I simply select it and I can click the trash can right here on the right side, or I can click the delete button on my keyboard and Mylio is going to delete it, and it's going to delete it everywhere. It will go into the file system for all of your devices and it'll delete that empty folder there. So again, it's always better to start those changes from the Mylio application itself rather than doing it outside of Mylio. All right, that's the presentation. Let's we're really out of time. I talked too long. Apologies about that, but I will take a few minutes to answer a handful of questions. So Lori, anything you're holding on to that people have asked?
Yeah, there's a couple questions. One is from Chris.
Okay.
I don't know if you can see it, but he says, I had a NAS designated as a vault that has failed and I can't seem to remove it. I need to add an alternative, and then will I be able to remove it?
When you say I can't seem to remove it, when you go into Mylio and you go to devices and you select it, you don't have the register option?
Chris, you want to unmute yourself?
I'm checking, sorry.
Oops.
No problem.
There you are.
Let me see. It's offline. It's been like totally disconnected. So let's see.
Right, but
Yeah,
the device will still.
I can unregister it.
Okay, so that's how you remove it from Mylio. Now,
Okay.
it is possible that when you go to unregister, Mylio is going to give you an error message that says this device contains originals that are not anywhere else. If you remove it, you're going to have lost originals. So something to keep in mind. You know where the originals are. Hopefully they're in that NAS outside of Mylio, so you can re-import it. What I really hope is that you had another vault that you can recreate things from. But if you need more help beyond that, please send us a ticket and we can get on a remote session with you and help you.
Okay, because the only other vault I have is the Mylio bucket. And when I look at both of them, they say they have around 200,000 originals lost, maybe. Lost original.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's not.
Well, if you know where your files are outside of Mylio, we can help you. We can help you re-import them. And the advantage of those XMP sidecar files are that they contain all the work you did.
Okay.
So if we re-import the media with the sidecars, let me put it this way. If you have a folder that has all of those originals, and the originals have the XMP sidecar next to it, when we point Mylio to that folder, Mylio is going to go, oh, there's an XMP I should read. And it'll bring all that work that you did back in.
Okay.
So, but go ahead and send us a support ticket and we'll give you more step-by-step instructions since we're limited on time here.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay,
What else
Betty
we
was
got?
Yep, Betty was asking, my Android phone tells me there's a verbose log capture chatty. Do I need to do something with it?
Yeah, you should. So that's probably because you contacted support and we said, hey, we need level 3 logs. Here's how you do it. So you go, there's a couple of places you can do it from. You can go into the device itself. And here on the device, there's a capture level, log capture level. If it's set to chatty or full, you're going to get that notification. You should set it to either normal or none. Actually, I recommend you leave it as normal because if something goes wrong, we want to have logs. And if you have it set to none, then there's no logs. But yeah, it doesn't have to be up here in chatty or above. The other place where you can change it, this is the easy place. The more complex place is in the console. In the top right corner of the console, there's a tiny little gear, and in there, you can change the level of the capture logs for the device that you're in. So that's
Okay,
the other way
thank
in which you can fix that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, then
Next.
we have a another question. Does spaces have to be set to everything on each vault to assure that everything is synced?
No. Spaces only defines what is visible on that device, not what is being synchronized. So synchronization is determined by the device sync policy. Spaces only designates what is visible, right? So if I go here to my calendar, you'll notice that I have all kinds of photos, right? There's family photos and travel photos, and there's underwater photos. If I switch to my underwater space, my calendar is going to change and it's only going to show me underwater photos here in the calendar now. That doesn't mean that the rest of my photos are gone. It's just Mylio is filtering what is visible or accessible in this space. So that's what it means. So the what gets synchronized to any one device is determined by the device sync policy. And vault, the designation vault, is a device sync policy. So anything with that designation of vault is going to save everything, regardless of what space is assigned to that device.
Okay, that's the last question, other than a few very nice comments. JC, thank you so much for doing this for us. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks everybody for joining. Okay.
All right. And apologies again for the coughing and the stuffiness, but I'm glad I was able to do it.
Great. Okay, go take care. Everybody, hope to see you next week. We have another coffee break, live Q&As and ready, set, go. So we're here to help you in any way we can. So have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.
Bye.